Welcome to the 5th episode of Season 3 of the 98% Life After Prison. Our show is dedicated to the vast majority of incarcerated people in North Carolina who are eventually released back into their community, often with almost no money and little support. I'm April Barber Scales.
And I'm Judy Van Wyk. Today we're talking about how justice-involved people are assessed user fees for everything from minor traffic infractions to a charge for time spent in jail.
All three courts denied my request for those fines to be waived so I could get my license.
I had scholarship money in here. I had Pell Grant money in here and money from work. They just took all of my money. I'm panicking. And that was when I found out about the drug tax because they let me know that the IRS took everything that was in my bank account.
The probation officer took me back to court 6 times because of non-payment of my fees and of my restitution. And each time, that's another charge on your background.
Since 1999, the fees associated with the court system have increased tenfold. The basic cost of appearing in district court has nearly tripled from $61 to $176, and that's just the beginning. Everything in our criminal justice system costs money. Those who can't pay are sent back to court and may even have their driver's license suspended. Their debts accrue interest, and in some cases, when people fail to pay, they're sent back to jail.
In early June, a convening of elected officials, advocates, policymakers, and those who have been directly impacted by criminal costs all met in Durham to discuss the financial hardship inflicted by fines and fees and possible solutions. During the 3-day convening, justice-involved people shared their personal experiences, and participants brainstormed about what could be done to alleviate the burden of what is essentially a poor tax. Today, we're going to hear from some of the participants in the fines and fees convening and learn how the system works and why it's so damaging.
Trilletta Banks was struggling to pay her bills. In an act of desperation, she committed financial fraud and was promptly apprehended. The judge decided to suspend her sentence and place her on probation. The only catch was that she had to pay to stay out of jail. Let's hear Trilletta's story.
So can you tell me how you were directly affected by fines and fees?
Okay. So in 2001, I was arrested and I was convicted in 2005. So during that time frame, I was on probation for those amount of years, unemployed because I lost my job. I had supervision fees and the probation fees, as well as fees to pay my attorney. So those fees I could never pay because I couldn't find a job. I was unemployed for the amount of time I was on probation, hadn't been convicted until 4 years later. So those fees affected me in a mighty way when you couldn't pay it, because therefore I was violated about 6 times back to court, which means the probation officer took me back to court 6 times because of non-payment of my fees and of my restitution. And each time, that's another charge on your background.
Can you explain a little bit more about your charge and what happened?
So I was on deferred prosecution. So if you, which was a diversion program, if you successfully complete it, in which I didn't at that time. And so I was convicted in 2005. They allowed me to stay on probation for that amount of time. My conviction wasn't until 2005.
And was it a diversion because of drugs?
No, it was a fraud charge. I had obtaining property by false pretense.
You were on a deferred charge. So how did that affect your life?
It literally broke me down. Not being able to provide for my family and still have this hanging over your head. It was very frustrating. It was a burden on not only just my family, but my friends, my relatives, my mother, right? Because when I couldn't pay a certain bill or something for my children, she would cover it, right? After, at the end of the very last time, the probation officer took me back to court, right? That sixth time, right? A violation for not being able to pay. There was a judge. I cannot remember the judge's name, but he looked at me and he says, "Hey, I relieve you from all these financial obligations from your fees," right? And I was looking, I said, okay, not knowing, right? I'm still going to carry the charge, but just not the fees. He waived all the fees.
How much did you owe?
So restitution was about $2,000, and I'm not for sure of how much my probation had racked up, but $227 a month plus the $20 or $30 supervision fees. I have no idea how much it added up to. I just lost track of it. I didn't even think about it because I was too busy trying to survive and take care of my family.
What did you just take away from that whole experience?
You know what? I guess make better decisions. When you get in survival mode, look for a community agency or someone in your circle that could possibly help you. Try not to make that decision because, in the words of James Baldwin, he says, if I'm starving, you're in danger, right? So try to use your community resources, use your community, use your people, use your family, friends, somebody before you make that decision, if possible.
So what are you doing now?
So I run a nonprofit by the name of Erica's Closet. We are a clothing closet in which we also provide workforce development services for people who are returning to the community after incarceration. I also developed a second chance direct hire staffing agency. So organizations in the community hire us to either consult them on workforce development for reentry or train their job seekers or their staff on how to engage with formerly incarcerated individuals.
Troletta's story is a lot like most people that I was incarcerated with. A lot of times when they couldn't pay, they locked them back up, which is unfortunate. It's like you can never get ahead.
Yeah, you really can't get ahead. And it comes at people at such a vulnerable time. You know that in 2023, 700,000 people in North Carolina, mostly people of color, had their license suspended because of unpaid traffic-related fines and fees. The truth is that in North Carolina, especially in rural areas, you will need a car to take you back and forth to work or school or to carry your kids to the doctor. Zachary Zeal lost his license for good reason. He did time in prison, got sober, and turned his life around. The only thing preventing him from having his license reinstated was the $5,000 he owes in fines and fees. How did you incur your fines and fees?
By being stupid and drinking and driving, and I was speeding and the police attempted to pull me over and I ran from them. So I ended up getting arrested for that and going to jail, and then I got sentenced to prison after 9 months of sitting in the jail. And part of the sentencing was that I had to pay restitution of $10 per day rent, basically, for staying in that jail. And that came to about right under $3,000. And the DMV will not give me my license back until I pay that fine.
How long did you spend in prison?
A little over a year.
So you lost your job?
Oh yeah, I lost my house, I lost my dog, I lost my job, I lost everything.
So tell me about your life now since you've gotten out.
It's actually been great. I was living in Pinehurst, North Carolina, and since I lost everything, I had nowhere to go when I got released from prison, and I had a good case manager Miss Bass Night at Hyde Corrections, and she connected me with a transitional house called Restorative Transitions here in Durham, and asked, I did a phone interview with them, and they accepted me into the program. And since moving to Durham, it's been fantastic.
So how are the fees and fines impacting your life now?
So I started a landscaping company in 2018 when I was living in Pinehurst. And when I got the DWI, I flew to elude. I lost my license. And now that I'm out and I don't have that driver's license, it is affecting my ability to work and make more money. Because if I had a license, I would be making a higher salary right now than I am having to be driven around by somebody else while working. So I would be in a way better position if I had a license. If I can't get the fines and fees reduced, I'm going to make the $5,000 and I'm going to pay it. So I'm moving forward towards doing that. In the meantime, I'm going to pursue getting those fines and fees reduced. But if that's not possible, I'm still saving money at this point to pay those fines.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I'm just very thankful that I went through this experience, because it's been an eye opener and an opportunity to learn more about myself. I wouldn't be here in Durham having this exciting journey, meeting all these wonderful people, if I hadn't made this mistake. So I think it's honestly, guys, it's important to make mistakes but it's when you make that mistake, the most important part is to evaluate it, learn from it, grow from it, get back up on the horse, and keep on moving.
Forward Justice describes itself as a nonpartisan law, policy, and strategy center dedicated to advancing racial, social, and economic justice in the United States South. As senior project manager for the organization, Christy Puckett was instrumental in organizing the fines and fees convening. In her interview, she details how the collateral consequences of criminal legal fees disproportionately punishes poor people.
I'm going to ask you a very basic question. What is the issue with fees and fines, and why is it so important that we abolish them?
It's important that we abolish fees and fines, and the issue, I think, with them is the disparities. There are simply people who cannot afford to pay the fees and fines. And so if you are able to afford the fees and fines, then you pay them and you go on with your life. And you have very little adverse or collateral consequences, financial or otherwise, right? But if you don't have the money to pay, the collateral consequences outside of just not paying, outside of the financial implications such as penalties and interest accruing, you have other consequences such as staying in jail many days, losing your job or your housing, or even custody of your children as a result of being in jail. Fees and fines and not being able to pay them are the issue. Most people are not being asked if they can pay when fees and fines are assessed in the courtroom. This impacts so many folks. It cuts across all color lines, all gender lines, all identities, all religions, and those things are the reasons why we should be abolishing fees and fines.
You're charging them to have served time in your prison.
Mm-hmm. So you are charging them for their freedom. Because if you do not pay, you will not be free. So you're paying to remain free. And that's the framing.
You say that you've been negatively impacted by the criminal justice system. Can you tell me about your experience briefly?
Sure. So I was a young person who was involved in a very violent relationship. And as a result of having my domestic violence criminalized, my victimhood criminalized, I was incarcerated. As a result of having my substance use disorder criminalized, I was incarcerated. And so I have had lots of fees and fines that I've had to pay over the years. I was on probation for many, many years. And so each month that you're on probation, that's a fee. Anytime you're found guilty, you are assessed restitution and other fees and fines. If you have drug crimes, you can be assessed a drug tax. I mean, there's just so many ways in which you pay, whether you pay a bail bondsman to get out or pay the entire bond to get out. Fees and fines are embedded within the criminal legal system. People who are in prison, who are on work release, they have to pay, for their stay. There are fees and fines everywhere in the criminal legal system. And fees and fines, I don't think fees and fines that we even assess are the fees that families have to pay. So to load money onto your loved one's account costs money. To put minutes on your phone for them to call or to send them money on their account costs you money. So there are fees associated everywhere within the criminal legal system, and it impacts the person and their family members.
How did all the fees and fines affect your reentry?
I would say that they affected my reentry by making it more difficult to just have a smooth reentry. When you are on probation, you are required to pay each month. If you cannot afford to pay, you will be locked back up. That is destabilizing. And so I was fortunate that I was always able to pay something for my fees and fines. And I always had probation officers who, because I was a caretaker, I was a mother trying to take care of children. I think that may have impacted them taking me, violating me or not. But that shouldn't be just my experience, right? That should be the experience of everyone. No one should have to be placed back in incarceration simply because they were too poor to pay the fees.
What is the difference between a fee and a fine?
So a fine is something that is assessed. So say you're speeding, there is a fine for that that the state determines. But then there are court fees that the court can charge you for various things, or that the state has regulated the court should be charging you for. So you have your original fine. So speeding might be a $25 fine, but all of the fees make it the $200 ticket that you pay. Right. So the fees go to various pots of money as allocated by the North Carolina legislature. A lot of it is law enforcement. Some of it is courts. Some of it is like schools, things like that. But as far as I can remember, most of the fees go to law enforcement.
We were given a list of the fees that justice involved people are charged, and there is something called that says LEO, retirement insurance. What is that?
Law enforcement officer in retirement insurance. So you pay into the law enforcement officer's retirement fund.
An indigent defense fund? What is that?
So indigent defense funds are the folks who fund the public defenders in counties across the state. So people who cannot afford an attorney are an appointed one. And those appointed attorneys are managed by indigent defense services.
And the people who are in prison end up paying those, even though they're supposed to be a free public defender.
Definitely. And so you don't even have to be in prison. So if you plead guilty, so if you get a public defender and you say, yes, I need a public defender, and at the end, you either plead guilty or are found guilty, yes, you then are assessed the charge of those charges at the end. And those fees or fines, I don't even think it's fines, it's just those fees are then, they do a civil judgment, and then the Department of Revenue gets involved. And so your money from any state income tax or they either send you a bill, figure out how to send you a bill. And if you don't pay it, or if they don't know where to send it, they wait for you to get your state income tax, for you to file your taxes, and then they just seize it.
Can you talk about how civil judgment plays into the fees and fines system?
So say a judge dismisses your charges, or you are found guilty of something and then you have to pay the attorney's fees. They get a civil judgment against you to be able to take your money from either your bank account in some kind of way. So they either can levy your bank accounts or to garnish your wages or, like I said, seize your tax returns. And so a civil judgment allows them to do that.
I understand there is relief from fees and fines through what is called an AOC CR 415. What is that and how does it work?
So if you are assessed to fees and fines, it's basically a form that you fill out. And there's a toolkit that the ncriminaljustice.nc.org has on the website that tells you how to fill it out step by step. But basically, you follow the paperwork with the clerks to say that you are indigent, that you are unable to pay these fees and fines. And so you file the paperwork, and then there's a process that you go through that is done just like every other filing that is done at the courthouse. And if they find that you actually are indigent, which I think people who have like government benefits are found to be indigent automatically, right? So if you have food stamps, Social Security, or any type of disability, if you have Medicaid and things like that, those folks pretty much automatically qualify to not have those fees and fines assessed because it recognizes that not everyone is playing on the same level of playing field. I'd encourage people to really talk about the financial implications. Like if you're going to be in the dark as a result of this, the judge needs to know that because those are the types of things that people deal with every single day and that judges can take into consideration. Those are the mitigating circumstances.
Is there anything I've left out? Anything else that you think is important that needs to be said or anything that you'd just like to add?
I just want people to walk away with the understanding that no matter what a person has done, they deserve to be treated fairly, justly, humanely, and that we cannot deviate from our principles based on what we believe someone has done, right? If those are the principles that we hold near and dear to us as a country, as a community, as a people, then we have to, it's the most important that we hold on to those principles when they are challenged, right? It's not about in the good times, how you behave. It's about when you are pressed against the wall, how do you respond? And if your response is to throw people away because they've done something, then I submit that you are no better than the people that you're throwing away. And so fees and fines are a reflection of how we feel about poverty in this country. It's a reflection of how we feel about people who are existing in poverty. If we really care about people, we will do everything we can to level the playing field so that they can thrive. Because if everyone around us is thriving, ultimately we're going to thrive too.
In the 20 years between 1998 and 2017, North Carolina's legislature has increased criminal and court fees by 400%. That increase correlates with the increased number of people under court supervision in the state, either in jail or prison, or on probation or parole. But even though the state raises hundreds of millions of dollars each year from fines, fees, restitution, and forfeitures, the courts remain chronically underfunded. That's because most of that money goes into the general fund to be spent as the legislature sees fit.
And we never see it, so who knows how they see fit. Some people argue charging fees in order to hold people accountable for what they did is wrong and is a very ineffective way to raise revenue. Criminal justice advocates want a number of fees reduced and more opportunity to set up a no-interest payment arrangement. They also want judges given more leeway to waive fees and fines based on the nature of the offense or the person's ability to pay.
One of the most expensive and notorious fees is something called the drug tax. If you're found in possession of an illegal substance in North Carolina, you can be charged a drug tax, even if the charges against you are dropped. Each year, North Carolina raises between $6 and $11 million from the drug tax. Most of that money goes into the police department that makes the arrest, not back into the community. Philip Cooper was charged a drug tax for the cocaine he sold. This is his story.
There was a rapper named Notorious B.I.G. and he made a song called The 10 Crack Commandments. And one of those commandments said, never get high on your own supply. I broke that one. And it impacted my ability to have a lucrative career as a substance seller. You dig? But I crashed out and made some mistakes, right? And I landed myself in prison for, 3 years and 4 months or 40 months.
You were charged a drug tax for the drugs that you had. Can you tell me how that impacted your life?
Well, I didn't even know what a drug tax was. So when I got out of prison, I still didn't know that I had a drug tax to pay. I didn't find out that I had a drug tax to pay until it was probably like 2012, close to 2013. And I was in Hickory, North Carolina, going to take my mom to Winston-Salem. She was going to Wake Forest Baptist Hospital there for her treatment. And I went to go check my Wells Fargo account because I was planning on taking her to Burlington Coat Factory because my mama loved to shop. She's in heaven with Jesus now, but my mama loved to shop. And so I was going to take her to Burlington Coat Factory and after eating stuff like that. And I went to check because I'm financially literate these days, right? When you get out of prison, you learn how to budget your money because you ain't selling drugs. You don't got that continuous flow, right? And so I go to check my bank account on Wells Fargo and I see all zeros. And I'm like, something is wrong. Somebody done hacked me. I'm panicking. I'm scared. And so like, I'm flipping out. I'm tripping and I contact the bank like, well, oh my God, something happened. Somebody took all of my school money. I had scholarship money in here. I had Pell Grant money in here and money from work. They just took all of my money. I'm panicking. And that was when I found out about the drug tax because they let me know that the IRS took everything that was in my bank account. There were all zeros. It was over $2,000 that they took out of my bank account. I was flipping out like, hey, they got to put that back. Some of this money is school money, from a scholarship and from Pell Grant. And it was like, no, you can't do anything about it. And so when I contacted the agent from the IRS, she let me know. She was very blunt. She wasn't nice. She wasn't mean. She was just straight up. And she was like, well, you should have set up a payment plan for your tax. I was like, what do you mean? She was like, well, you got caught with drugs. That means you have to pay tax on them because you were selling them. I was like, it was drugs. You don't pay taxes on it. She was like, yes, you do. I was like, well, how was I supposed to know this? This is what she told me that blew my mind. She said when I was selling drugs, I was supposed to go get some type of stamp to sell drugs and pay my taxes on it as I was selling. And I thought she was being sarcastic, but in all actuality, this is what this woman from the IRS told me. And then I ended up setting up a payment plan, and it was like, the least amount that I could pay, but I still felt that because I wasn't making a living wage. I was only making like $9.50. What was I making? 11. I had went up to $11 and something an hour at this time, and I was going to school. So like the money I was getting from Pell Grant and financial aid and stuff, it was actually helping me with living.
So they took your Pell Grant money. Wow.
So I'm grateful that I was living with my dad at the time because I wouldn't have been that would have sent me back to selling drugs. Like something like, yeah, I ain't even gonna lie. In my mind, when that happened, I was thinking about going back to that lifestyle and even attempted. Let's just be transparent. Even attempted. I was considering going back and was gonna go back into the game. But, I got that community that I shared about, that faith community, that recovery community. And when you have a social network of people who care about you and your spiritual condition and everything, those people hold you accountable. They pour into your cup. And glory be to God for those connections that helped me, because I ended up not going that route. But I had housing covered and I had those connections. What about the many people that don't have those connections and don't have a family member who is allowing them to stay there? They go back to their old ways, snap of a finger.
Did you get any of that money back?
Oh, no, ma'am. That was over. And no. And I still don't never see state tax refunds or whatever. I ain't never seen a state refund ever. They take my state refund every year. So yeah, no, I never seen any of that money back.
So they took your Pell Grant money. They just started taking the money out, they never really gave you anything informing you of your tax.
No, because if they would have, I would have came out knowing. And if I would have known that coming out of prison, I definitely would have been on top of it. Because, I mean, once I knew that I could have a small payment, as long as I was paying on it, I did it. But before then, I didn't know. This was one of the most traumatizing events in my life. And so with Operation Gateway, the organization I founded, I always, if people get out for drug charges and stuff, I always, try to tell them, like, listen, you need to check on your drug tax. And people oftentimes don't know about this. So this information is not even hitting the prisons for people to know. They don't know that they have a tax that they got to pay. They get out, they know they have to pay probation fines and fees, but this isn't a part of the conversation.
Despite the financial obstacles, Philip Cooper finished a 2-year degree and hopes to complete a 4-year degree at NC State. He also started a reentry program, Operation Gateway, for formerly incarcerated people who struggle with addiction. If you'd like to learn more about the system of fees and fines in North Carolina and its consequences, you can go to the website www.endcriminaljustice.nc.org.
That's our show for today. Join us next time when we meet employers who are giving formerly incarcerated people a second chance by giving them a job and much-needed respect.
We hope you liked our show and you will tell your friends to tune in to the 98% wherever they get their podcasts. In the meantime, if you want to reach out to us, you can email us at the 98% lifeafterprison@gmail.com. Again, that's 98%.lifeafterprison@gmail.com. We'll see you next time.